Hi, good morning. So if you're here at PopTech, you probably don't have a job that can be easily replaced by a robot or a machine. You probably have a profession that requires a great amount of hard skills and soft skills. Skills like empathy and creativity have increasingly become vital to modern day work. And jobs that require both social skills and analytical thinking have fared best in terms of employment and pay. Learning computer science, math, and science is not enough. And yet, far less time and energy is spent on teaching people soft skills compared to hard skills. And for some people, acquiring soft skills can be mystifying. We often perceive people to be naturally born creative geniuses or not. Emotional intelligence, focus, empathy, and creativity are all skills that can be learned. And I'd like to share with you today how yoga and meditation can help people learn those skills. But first, a personal story. My interest in yoga and meditation started as a personal journey. And as I advanced further in my career, I found my life unsustainable. While holding executive roles for Yahoo and then later for Google, I had 2 young children. I looked like I had it all, but my life was not sustainable. I was so stressed and distracted with work that I barely remember what my kids were like at this age. My hips were so tight that it was painful to sit on the floor to play with my kids. And so although I was fit and healthy, I was deteriorating on the inside, and that's what led me to yoga. I wasn't looking to find greater focus, empathy, and creativity. I just knew I needed to stretch my body. And then as I deepened my practice, I noticed that my body and my mind began to change. And I was very curious to understand what was going on. And I sought to learn the science behind what was actually happening. So first, let's start with emotional intelligence. Here's a diagram of our brain. The prefrontal cortex is the thinking, analytical, storytelling brain. It's rational. This is responsible for most of our thought processes. The amygdala is the emotional brain. It's constantly scanning everything we see for threats to our survival. It's responsible for our fight or flight response. Emotional intelligence is the interplay between these 2 parts of the brain. And with mindfulness practices, we can become better at regulating our responses to stimulus. A study by Julie Brzezinski-Lewis and her colleagues studied how meditation affects people's reaction to stimulus. When expert meditators were subjected to negative sounds, they showed lesser activation in the amygdala compared to novice meditators. And the more hours people meditate, the less emotional reactivity they show. Another study by Matthew Lieberman looked at the relationship between meditation and affect labeling. Now, affect labeling is one's ability to notice one's emotions and label them. And labeling emotions is important because it helps us manage those emotions as they arise. And this skill requires different parts of the brain that don't normally get used, but meditators are shown to be more adept at affect labeling. When we bring awareness to the body, we cultivate a high-resolution perception of our emotions. Much like Keanu Reeves' character Neo in The Matrix, dodging bullets, this perception becomes so refined across time and space that you can watch an emotion the moment it arises. And this ability is important because the better we can perceive our emotions, the better we can manage them. Now let's talk about focus. Studies have found that brain areas linked with attention and sensory processing are thicker in people who meditate. And it's not just a correlation, it's a causal effect. The longer people practice meditation, the thicker those parts of the brains are. We can literally change our brains through mental training. When we create this habit of practicing this focused attention, it becomes easier to move into that space during times when we most critically need it. Focused attention is very much like a muscle, one that needs to be strengthened through exercise. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes to stay focused. It's this clarity of mind, this focused attention, that is paramount to the act of making. A cluttered mind leads to a cluttered design. An unfocused mind leads to a confused outcome. Focus refers to paying attention to what is most important and meaningful in the moment. It is also an act of letting go. Simplifying and decluttering are mindfulness practices. They're ways to practice living in the present moment. Take, for example, some common obstacles to simplicity in product development. Maybe we don't want to cut features because we don't want to disappoint early adopters who want power and flexibility. Or maybe we don't want to let go of a potential revenue opportunity, even though it doesn't make sense for the product or its users. Or maybe the team wants to add functionality because it's technically possible. In any of these cases, it's all about ego, wanting to be liked or not wanting to be disliked, or wanting more money or showing off. Mindfulness practices help people let go of their ego and deal with whatever is getting in the way of achieving that focus. Simplifying then becomes less an act of ruthless elimination and more of an act of love for the higher intention behind what's being made. Now let's talk about empathy. We talk a lot about how important empathy is, but it is increasingly beyond our reach. Our constant connection to digital technology skews us away from real human connection. A University of Michigan team found a 40% decline in empathy among college students, with most of that decline taking place after the year 2000. Networked technologies allow us to be in a persistent state of absent presence that can erode empathy and connection. Virginia Tech researchers found that just having a mobile device within easy reach, even if you're not holding it or using it, can lessen the quality of face-to-face conversation, reduce empathy among friends, and deflect our attention from what is happening right before our eyes. Now, creative careers require both analytical thinking and empathy. We need technical excellence, but that excellence has to be directed towards an excellent experience, and that takes empathetic imagination. Anthony Jack of Case Western Reserve found that when people think analytically, when we think about the technical details of how something works, we turn off the brain areas that allow us to understand other people's experience. On the other hand, when we really get inside someone else's head, we then turn off the brain areas for analytic thinking. There is a neurological divide between these areas of the brain, which results in a cognitive tension between these two modes of understanding. Now, psychological testing shows us that people tend to be better at one mode of thinking than the other. And you may not be surprised to hear that women tend to be more empathetic and men tend to be more analytical. But this isn't just a gender difference. Even if you look at just men or just women, the people who are more analytic tend to have less empathy and vice versa. We can train both networks. A lot of recent work suggests that we can train our analytic spatial visual skills by playing fast-action violent video games. So women, on average, can catch up with men in spatial visual skills if they play violent video games for just 1 hour a day for 2 weeks. Now, playing violent video games was also found to decrease empathy, so training the mind in one direction does come at a cost. We can also train the empathetic network. Research from the University of Rochester Medical Center found that training doctors in mindfulness meditation helped them to listen better and not be as judgmental, both at work and at home. And another study found that people's ability to recognize subtle facial expressions after they did yoga dramatically improved compared to before the yoga session. And this effect was far greater for people who regularly practice yoga and for people who practiced a flow sequence during the yoga session. Now, with regard to the mind-body connection, we've long known about the impact the mind can have on the body, but now there's a growing body of research that proves the relationship is bidirectional. Changes in the body can change one's emotions, mood, hormone production, and gene expression. For example, we smile when we feel happy, but we also feel happier when we're forced to smile, like holding a pencil between our teeth. Dr. Eric Finzi injected Botox into the frown muscles of people diagnosed with depression, so they were prevented from frowning. And about 27% of these patients got better, compared to only 7% of the patients in a control group. So paralyzing the face and preventing them from frowning literally cured patients from depression. And the relationship between the mind and the body is not just limited to the face. At Harvard University, Amy Cuddy and her colleagues studied the effect of posture on hormone production and behavior. Cuddy and her team put research subjects in high power poses and low power poses. And after a mere 2 minutes, they found testosterone levels shot upwards and cortisol levels shot downwards in people in high power poses. And then they gave everybody a chance to play a gambling game and found that being in the high power pose made those people much more aggressive later on. So our bodies change our minds. Our body language changes how we think and feel about ourselves. In today's modern age, with all the hunching we do over a computer or our devices, we're perpetually in a defensive posture. We're rounding in instead of opening up. And this defensive positioning that we do leads to tension in the body and can inhibit our openness to new ideas and reinforce our natural tendencies to protect ourselves, especially our egos. And to counteract that, we have to open the body and release the tension that builds up. The spaciousness we create in our bodies impacts our brains. Yoga poses that open the shoulders and the chest are called heart openers by yoga teachers. And in the same way that they create spaciousness in the body within the chest cavity for more breath, they're thought to help with challenging situations like difficult relationships or negotiations or relating to new people or new ideas. Now, we can exploit the mind-body connection to help improve our ability to relate to others. We can also use yoga and meditation to be more creative. I talked about the mind-body connection with regard to the face, the shoulders, and the chest. There's also a strong connection between the mind and the hips. The psoas muscle is the only muscle to connect the spine to the legs. It's responsible for holding us upright and allows us to lift our legs when we walk. And a healthy functioning psoas stabilizes the spine and provides support through the trunk. It forms a shelf for the vital organs of the abdominal core. Now, the psoas is directly linked to the reptilian brain, ready to help you spring into action or curl you up into a protective ball. And our fast-paced modern lifestyle chronically triggers and tightens the psoas. If we constantly contract the psoas due to stress or tension, the muscle eventually begins to shorten, leading to a whole host of painful conditions, including low back pain, sciatica, disc problems, hip degeneration, knee pain, and digestive problems. And this situation is exacerbated by many things in our modern lifestyle, from sitting in our chairs at work or sitting behind the steering wheel or wearing uncomfortable shoes that distort our posture and curtail our natural movements. Now, a relaxed psoas is the body's expression of play and creativity. Instead of the contracted psoas ready to run or fight, the relaxed and released psoas is ready instead to lengthen and open, to dance. A mobile, healthy psoas not only gives the benefits of mobility and physical comfort, but it also supports a free, more calm way of being. We store negative emotions in our hips, and by releasing the hips and hip flexors, we release our stored anger, thus freeing ourselves to be more playful and creative. Now, meditation also affects creativity. So earlier, the meditation I was referring to was a form of meditation called focused attention meditation, which helps to focus the mind. Open monitoring meditation is another form of meditation that calls for monitoring your experience from moment to moment with openness, curiosity, and acceptance, and without reaction, judgment, or holding on. Researchers at Leiden University in the Netherlands found that open monitoring meditation best promotes divergent thinking compared to focused attention meditation or no meditation at all. And divergent thinking is a style of thinking that allows us to generate many new ideas. And this is exactly what we want to do when we're brainstorming. Open monitoring meditation can help us generate more ideas. Now, yoga starts out for many people as a physical practice and then naturally evolves into the art of living well. As negative habits, behaviors, and influences within ourselves within ourselves and from the outside are progressively dropped in favor of more sustainable ones, yoga becomes a way of life and moving through the world. It becomes not about what we do, but how we do things. And this is where the impact of yoga and meditation is most profound. Mindfulness practices help you let go of fear of being judged or fear of trying new things. When you let go of fear, you can truly be present. And when you're present, you're more able to fully enjoy the experience of whatever activity you're engaged in, rather than focusing on the outcome. And being able to enjoy the journey more than the destination is one of the best things that you can do for your creativity. Stanford psychologist Philip Zimbardo demonstrated this phenomenon through his research. He studied what happens when people are engaged in creative activities and are focused on the final outcome as opposed to the act of making. So he had college students paint a color picture of a basket of flowers, and half the group was told that judges in the art department would be evaluating their efforts, and then the other half was told just to focus on the artistic process itself. So here are some examples from that experiment. So you can see that in the upper left-hand corner is an example from someone who was told to focus on the present, and people who are, to focus on the final outcome. And people in this condition produce paintings with the most technical merit. very accurate kind of paintings. And the people focused on the present, which was more reflected on the bottom two paintings, were judged to be the most creative. And that one in the upper right corner was painted by somebody who was predisposed to focus on the joy of painting, but was told to focus on the final outcome and was obviously not very happy. But anyway, these findings suggest that creativity is fostered when people are disposed towards the present, and that technical merit is fostered when people are oriented towards the final product. Now, as makers, it's important for us to understand these different mindsets and the effect that they have on the creative process. When we're ideating, it's crucial that we let go of judgment of ideas, which should come later in the design process. When our egos are not put on the line, we can more easily relax and be playful. When you're fully engaged in play, you lose some of your psychological barriers and stop censoring or editing your thoughts. And this allows creative ideas to flow more freely. Emotional intelligence, focus, empathy, and creativity are like muscles that need strengthening with exercise and use. And traditional school subjects like math, science, and the humanities are as important as ever to compete in the labor market, but equally important are soft skills. Yoga and meditation can equip people with the soft skills they need to not only be successful, but also happy. Thank you.